Ready, set, go! Greetings, children of the screen. Welcome to the penultimate edition of What You Mean You Ain't Seen. I am joined by...
Bree.
Logan.
Guys, do you remember way back in the day when we first started this show?
Oh, Jesus.
You remember that? Whenever we used to do comic book movies that y'all hadn't seen, a lot of them were animated. They were all
Flash.
super fun. Yeah, we did the Flash show. We did like both the X-Men pilots. It was great, right?
So fun.
Well, I figured as this is the second to last ever episode, we will go back to true form, and today we will be looking at a comic book movie.
Ooh.
Right on. Right. So are you guys ready for the classically goofy ridiculousness of a funny book movie?
Yeah,
Sure.
I think I'm ready for that.
Awesome. What you mean you ain't seen Ichi the Killer? Ichi the Killer, originally released in 2001, rated R, coming in at 129 minutes. It is classified as action, comedy, crime, thriller. It is directed by Takashi Miike, with a screenplay by Sakachi Sato, based on a manga written by Hado Yamato, with a cast that includes... No, you know what? No, fuck this. I'm just going to do the same as the Cowboy Bebop retrospective. I'm just going to put all their names on the screen right now. Look at these gloriously talented motherfuckers who had to deal with all this ridiculously obnoxious bullshit to make this insane ride of a movie. They're all awesome.
1ってやっぱ化け物みたいなやつですね。
早くこいつに会いたいよ俺。愛がないなお前の暴力には。
That's right, children of the screen. We took a look at Takashi Miike's Ichi the Killer. So, Ichi the Killer is the story of a sadistic or sadomasochistic mob enforcer from the Yakuza in Japan, who his boss goes missing and he goes on just a rampage of torture and destruction to try to find his boss, because his boss is the only one who can beat him right. Little does he know that there is another gang who has brainwashed a disturbed and potentially mentally challenged young man into being just a brutal, vicious killer of the Yakuza, because this guy was bullied, and, like, that's what bullies deserve. So, guys, what did you think of this wonderful, just silly-ass comic book movie?
Say silly.
I was going to say, did you say
Goddamn awful.
silly?
It's silly.
Oh,
It is
okay.
It's so silly.
It feels like a fever dream. Is what it feels
That's fair.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's not a fucking comic book movie.
It is! It's based on a manga. However you want to say it. It's based on that shit. It is a comic book movie, as I will prove to you in the following segments of this video. Let's go ahead and move on.
Oh, fuck.
Right on, guys. So what was your favorite thing out of Takashi Miike's Ichi the Killer?
Oh, boy, you only want me to pick one?
Yeah, just one.
I guess mine would be... Okay, so, like, the scene where he cuts his tongue off.
Oh, where
Tip of his-
Kakihara cuts his tongue off?
Yeah.
Yeah, like he fucked up the other mob guy and tortured him, so now he's got to pay penance.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty funny in and of itself, but specifically the looks on their faces.
Yeah.
When he when we pan to them and they're all just
Yeah.
like, what the fuck
Yeah,
is going
it's just
on?
like, huh? And like his whole rationale too of like, I enjoy sweets, and they're just like, what? Huh? And yeah,
Oh yeah. Piercing and all, like he
No,
just
yeah.
said fuck it. Oh.
it's fantastic. And then later on, the guy who got tortured, they give him the tongue in a little jar, and like he like busts it open, and like you're like, what are you? Is he gonna eat that motherfucker? Like in this movie, you don't know.
Yeah.
Is
You
he
really
gonna
don't.
eat this
100%.
goddamn thing? But no, he just like squeezes it, and it's just like, I don't know if that's grosser or not, but goddamn.
Trying to absorb his power.
Yeah, that one scene, they get a lot of mileage out of it.
Yeah.
When you watch the trailer, like the first image in like the Redux like remastered trailer for this movie is the tongue dropping in the vial and then like the ring clinking on the bottom. Like this movie gets so much mileage out of that tongue cutting, and the effect is pretty fucking solid.
solid.
And as you said, all the performances all the way around are fucking spot on.
Yeah.
It's also a scene where, like, once he starts the cutting, you don't need, like, the actors are so good that, like, you don't need any explanation. Like, it's just all on their faces. Like, for a few minutes, it almost becomes like a silent movie where it's just like watching these people like,
Yeah, or like they didn't even know that he was gonna do it. Like their genuine reactions are so genuine. That
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. Like
or
that.
maybe the effect is just so good that you really get that level of reaction. Even though, like, it's very easy to see how they're doing the effect. He's literally just got a fake tongue that he's biting down on.
And then,
And it's like, you know, either got a tube or it's already got like a blood pack in it, you know? But still, it's a very effective scene.
Yeah, it
Works
works.
really, really well. Yeah.
And somehow still funny.
Yeah, it's really funny. It's another one of those scenes in this movie that managed to do something so immensely, insanely fucked up, but still manages to be funny. It makes me laugh every time.
Yeah, I'll give it that.
I love that fucking scene. And as for you, sir.
Mine's like I can pick out 2 key points in it, but really just like what you said is like some of the violence in this is just asinine.
Yeah.
Like it's just got some asinine violence, like
So
some
over
shit
the
you
top.
go, God damn, but at the same time you're like, what?
Yeah.
Like the CGI part where he cuts the rapist in half.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he drop kicks this dude in half.
Yeah.
And it's like, at first it's like, okay, like we're gonna get one of those scenes out of like the one with the boat and they cut the dudes and all that. Yeah, but like, you see the blood where he's about to get cut and you're like, cool. And then like, you think it's just gonna fall apart, but it just, into this like CGI plant almost.
Yeah. It looks like a
And you're
banana
like-
peel, like...
Yeah.
You're like, really?
Yeah.
That's the best you got? And then, like, there's more to it. Like, it just keeps, like, falling.
And it looks ridiculous and cartoony.
Yeah.
And my favorite thing about that moment is whenever it hits the ground, they
The
do a
camera
camera
shakes.
shake after the fact. And then, like, add the sound effect of, like, each side of it weighed 200 pounds or something. Like, it's just
Like,
insane. And that's why I say that this is actually a really good comic book movie, because all the violence in this movie feels like an over-the-top manga.
yeah,
Like, it's totally insane.
Yeah.
Like, it's as if they took, like, anime violence and tried to do it live action with early 2000s CGI. Which gives it this really surreal, cartoony quality. But there's a bunch of moments.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
All the way.
And the walking into the, like, apartment room or whatever, and you just have the cut of, like, you're just watching, like, the apartment door in the hallway, and it looks like someone just took a pressure washer with red colored dye
and just body
and just
parts.
shoots that shit out the door.
And whole
with,
dudes
like,
come flying out.
whole dudes come flying out and
Just
CGI
like-
body, or no, real
and
body
then-
parts or
yeah.
something, like...
And the face that just hits the door and then slides the fuck down.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's a total cartoon.
Yeah.
But it's also like a really dark, twisted,
Yeah.
fucked up
Yeah.
live action cartoon.
Yeah.
Which is because, again, like, there are other scenes in the movie where the effect that they're using, if it's a practical effect, is so well done. Like when they're torturing the woman for information,
Yeah.
like that stuff is really hard to watch because
Yeah.
those effects are really good.
Any of the torture stuff's, like, pretty rough.
Yeah,
It's all, like...
with, like, maybe the exception of, like, them pulling on home dude's
Yeah,
face.
that was
Like,
just
it starts
ridiculous.
off and you're like, a little bit, but then, like,
And then when the other chick joins,
the
you're like-
more stretchy it gets, the funnier it gets, where, like, literally it looks like a Looney Tunes cartoon where they're just, like, stretching this
Three
guy
Stooges
out.
shit.
Or
Yeah.
some shit like that, yeah. So, like, it's totally zany, and the action's totally over the top. And, yeah, it's a really great it's one of the best aspects to the movie, because without all that stuff, this movie would be really hard to watch.
Yeah.
Like, if you just did this as, like, a very realistic take on this exact same story, like, that movie would be brutal and soul-crushing to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas this movie is tough to watch in places, but is also, like, zany, crazy hijinks. And just, it's silly. It's just, it's silly fun.
Silly.
Takashi Miike, you silly goose.
You silly
Jesus.
Willy.
And as for me, my favorite thing in Ichi the Killer is motherfucking Kakihara.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Goddamn. And, like, I do also really like Ichi, but in a totally different way, because his character's so, like, twisted and weird and actually very complex. But Kakihara is actually a really simple character.
Yeah.
And he's in my opinion, one of the best comic book movie villains that we've got. Being so good to the point that literally half of Heath Ledger's Joker is just Kakihara.
Shit.
Like, the whole tendency to, like, wanna be beat up. Literally, like, the scar makeup stuff. Like, there's a scene in the movie where Kakihara, the scene where he cuts his tongue off, he's almost wearing Heath Ledger's outfit from The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Almost.
Okay? So, like, he's just an amazingly, awesomely twisted character, and he has a great introduction. This movie is full of great character introductions.
Yeah.
So Kakihara's like first walking in, seeing the room, knowing something's wrong,
like,
and then
fuck.
turning around
And yeah.
and exhaling with the like that is fucking awesome, despite
was.
the kind of shoddiness of the CGI used for it. Like, it's just an amazing moment to the point where like you didn't really see that coming.
Yeah.
And again, like, his wardrobe in the movie is absolutely fantabulous.
Yeah. I want all of it.
I want all of his
Kinda want it.
wardrobe. And again, like, the whole idea that he misses his boss because no one can hurt him the way that his boss hurt him.
Yeah.
Like,
and then when the dude says it, just fucks him up.
yeah, when someone calls him on it, it's like all of a sudden reality hits. I love that scene too, where it's the dude in the TV.
Man, he's like my favorite character.
He's fantastic.
Like, it's so unfortunate he gets so fucked up so early on, because, like, I enjoyed him. And
Yeah.
then
And I
does.
just love the
Yeah.
moment when he's like, it's not because you were in love with him or you respected his balls. It's because he could hurt you like no one else. And I was like, oh my god. And then, yeah, he just like falls back into the feathers, which again is just such a really great image.
Yeah.
Like, this movie, despite having like some really weird visuals, like has some great imagery, and Kakihara, the like loudness of his character and the flamboyantness of him, and the way that like Home Dude, and I'm sorry, I apologize, I'm not going to try to pronounce Home Dude's name. He is a great actor, and like everything that he brings to Kakihara is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, there's never a moment with Kakihara on screen in this movie where I am bored or disappointed. Even in the moments that are less than good, like when we finally see him like open the mouth and like he gets like the effect on that is really silly.
Yeah.
It's not the best effect in the movie.
also the whole thing's silly.
yeah. Oh no.
The whole,
It's
that whole part, and like, man, okay, yeah,
no. Yeah. It's super silly, and like the effect doesn't quite work, but it's still really entertaining.
Yeah.
And the performance from the two actors really, really works. Like, I love that when Kakihara goes into a place of being violent, like, most of the time, like, he has to get really far into it before he starts enjoying himself. Most of the time, he's very just like, I guess this is what we're doing now. Like Eeyore, almost, where he's just like, you don't understand what violence is. Like, you don't appreciate it. Like, I'm bored. Which is also great when, like, the chick tries to, like, beat him up, and he's just like,
Yeah.
you let me down. I love it. Yeah, so in general, Kakihara is just a fucking great character, and again, I apologize, I'm going to put his name on the screen again right here. He's a great actor. For those of you who would never guess it, he's also been in another comic book movie, a couple of them actually, as he plays, I think his name's Hodin, I think is the character's name, in the Warriors 3, in the first Thor movie, and then in Thor Ragnarok. Like, he gets a really badass moment. Like, he's the dude in the crowd who, like, stands up to Hela, and then she just annihilates his ass.
Right.
So yeah, like, he's in there, he's a great actor, and he fucking rocks it as Kakihara. If it wasn't for Kakihara in this movie, I don't think this movie would work.
Yeah.
Even, like, an actor who just, like, took that character 10 degrees away from the way this guy does it, I think the whole movie would not, I think it would just, like, collapse under the bizarre tangentialness of so much of the other shit going on.
Yeah.
Yep.
So rock on, Kakihara.
Rock on.
Kakihara.
愛がないなお前の暴力には。
Alright, Bree, what was your least favorite thing out of Ichi the Killer?
Probably the most distracting and annoying thing I would say would be just the dub, the English dub.
Really?
Yeah.
But this bloke next door, he had a German Shepherd. I prayed for something to happen.
What the fuck do you think you're doing?
Just a little torture.
It's not that bad. It's a
I've
little,
seen worse.
It's a little distracting how British everyone sounds.
Yeah.
But like it is a dub, and you know that's not their real voices anyway.
Yeah.
Like again, it's not great. It's not great. Like it's not.
It's ass.
It's
But I've seen much worse.
I think I've seen worse too.
And I will say that there are a few roles in the movie that are actually done really well.
Yeah.
Like again, I think whoever's voicing Kakihara,
It's fine.
I think that he does really well, and even the kind of British feel of that character works really well for the aesthetic of the character.
yeah.
The
and-
brothers, the twins.
Yeah,
I think was
the two
fine.
twins, they work fine because they're supposed to be
Yeah.
weird, wacky characters anyway. I also think the guy who does
Woof.
Itchy does a
like, so
fine
goofy.
job as Itchy.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Itchy's not a
I'll
very
agree.
articulate character, but like, and sometimes like the specific sounds he picked like the most annoying version of crying he could at times, but that does make sense for the character.
Yeah.
And again, I've watched this in the original language as well, and a lot of the characters, while like it seems super weird, like a good example is like the Yakuza boss who like can't stand up on his own and is always like they match what they do in the Japanese language version really well with that character. So it's just a choice that Miike made when making the movie to have that character be that weird and silly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one specifically, the British accent though is a little bit weird because it takes a very like nasally like character and adds like an extra level to it.
And a lot of the like evil henchmen sound like
They're henchmen.
Sound,
They have a very
yeah.
traditional like
Yeah.
British henchman.
British goblin sound.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
So no, yeah,
Ridiculous.
like I don't think it's that bad. I've definitely heard worse, but there are also definitely moments, especially with the kid in the movie. His is really
Holy
bad.
crap, his is bad.
Again, I've watched all the Godzilla movies, like the original there's always an annoying fucking kid in those movies, normally named George or Georgie or some shit like that. Anyway, that was pretty bad, but in general, I like if I had to rank it, I would put it as like a 6 out of 10, probably. Like it's by far nowhere near the worst I've ever heard, but goddamn, you could have put forth a little bit more effort in places, you know, just a little bit.
Felt where it was like only like 4 actors.
Yeah.
Or 5 actors.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, all right, let's knock these out today.
Yeah, and again, this is like 2001 again, so it's like the whole people were like both the producers of content and audiences were much more accepting of below par dubs than they are today.
Yeah.
Because like at that point, like the whole like anime revolution had already started in America, as well as like us being much more open to foreign film that was dubbed and subtitled and stuff like that. But like there was still a level where people were just like, oh no, like it doesn't have to be perfect because like it's not the real thing anyway. It wasn't like it is now where like dubs are important to people.
Yeah.
Like getting the like not only the like actual translation but getting like the cadence and like the capturing of the character right, like that's much more important to people now, both in animation and in live action, than it was in like 2001 when this movie was released. It's not a great dub, but like for the time it was actually above average, I would say. I was watching a lot of Japanese horror movies at this time. Like it was, believe me, it's not that bad.
Fucking A, that's a rabbit hole.
Oh
It's
yeah,
a can
it
of
is.
worms, bud.
Oh yeah, it is. We're gonna watch some more Takashi Miike,
got
but
to.
I didn't feel right just dropping Audition on y'all's ass. So
Didn't help to
we did a
1, 2, 3,
comic
4.
book movie.
Oh my god.
And as for you, sir,
Man, got to keep it diverse because I also hated the dub. But you mentioned it earlier, the payoff for whatever his name is
Kakihara?
for Kakihara's mouth, man. Because I was like, that shit's gonna open all the way at some point.
oh,
in
the
this
scene
movie.
with the fist.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair.
I was like, it's gonna open all the way at some point, and then the guy he takes the things out, and the dude punches him and gets his fist stuck, and that's how the shit opened. No, like bite his fucking head off. That's the shit. Like that's what I
okay.
thought. That's where I thought we were going with this.
Yeah.
Like the movie's already so ridiculous. I was like, he's gonna try and bite his head off.
No,
or
that's
some
fair. That's fair that it's not over the top enough, and the effect is, like I said, it's really a silly effect, and it's a little underwhelming, to be honest. Like, obviously, if they were doing the movie today, we'd probably have much more of like a CGI thing of like you actually seeing him also like dislocate the jaw and stuff like that or something.
Or
But
just something wild.
yeah,
but-
like I think maybe going for the head might be a little bit much, but maybe even like biting just like this part of the hand off, or even just like something more than just like biting onto his hand and then him pulling it out and getting like the
Scrapes.
yeah, like
Yeah.
even though it was down to the bone and that's like grotesque, and that's pretty much what happens in the manga too. Like
okay.
it's one of the more weird grounded things where they were like, well, he can't bite his hand off. That's
Yeah.
fucking ridiculous.
Except for later, the guy's like, I wonder if I can rip this guy's arm off, and then fucking does
Yeah.
it. And you're like, no, that's not how that's gonna
Yeah.
work at all.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, in fairness, we didn't see how he ripped his arm off. Okay? We don't know the technique, so I'm going to give the movie the benefit of the doubt on that one.
Oh my God.
Jesus.
Okay? There's some weird shit that happens in this movie.
Oh yeah.
Maybe. Maybe he did it. But no, I do agree with you that that is a little underwhelming. And, like, the only other moment we really get that's, like, a real good, like, moment with the mouth is after Kakihara's dead. Where we do, like, a flashback to, like, him in, like, the shower or the sauna or whatever, where, like, Home Chick was beating him, where you know that's where, like, his boss used to beat him as well and stuff like that, where he's just, like, sitting there all depressed, and then, like, he turns his head, and the piercings are out, and, like, it drops down, and you just see, like, the big Joker-esque smile.
Yeah.
And I know that was supposed to be somewhere earlier in the movie. I imagine it was in, like, the scene right after, like, the guy with the head in the TV. Like, after that scene, I imagine it's, like... I feel like in the original cut of the movie, probably what happened is we went from that scene to something else, and then we went to the shot of that, and then whenever he turns his head, I think that's actually when the chick comes in, and then we would go into the scene of her beating him after that. I
Yeah.
think that's what probably originally was supposed to be there, but for time and pacing, they moved it around.
Yeah.
But they wanted to show that shot because it was so cool, so they're like, yeah, just throw it at the end. The movie's fucking weird anyway, right? You know? Especially with, like, the ending of the movie being so kind of subjective or bizarre as it is.
Weird. Yeah.
Because the end of the movie very much takes place in Kakihara's head.
Yeah.
As we see, like, at the end, whenever Home Dude moves his hair aside, Ichi never attacked him. Probably what happened is he rammed that thing into his head and then jumped off the roof.
Yeah.
That's probably what really happened.
Yeah.
But we're not shown. We're shown the fantasy inside Kakihara's head.
Yeah.
Which also makes me wonder how much else of this movie takes place inside the fantasy in his head. Which then makes me wonder, why wasn't the payoff for the hand better if we're inside his fucking head? So you have a very valid point. You see the way I looped it back around there?
Full circle.
Yeah.
Jinx, you owe me a Coke.
Get out of here.
Let me some Coke. All right, and as for me, my least favorite thing about Ichi the Killer, it's the worst thing about it. It's the thing that actually trickles down and makes all of the other bad things in the movie what they are. Like, it is the one corrupting force behind the entire piece of this masterwork.
Jesus.
Okay? And that's that this movie is dated as fuck.
Oh boy, yeah, it is.
This movie came out in motherfucking 2001.
It was so hard to place. Like, I'm watching this movie, and I'm like, fuck, man. Like, they're wearing clothes that look like 90s, but then, like, it feels like it's in the fucking 70s.
Yeah.
And then you're like, but there's CGI in this movie, so it's got to be like 2000.
Yeah.
Right.
You
It's,
just don't know.
like, based on like the manga or the manga. Sorry guys, don't crucify me. Based on that, like the period it's set in, I believe is the late 80s, early 90s, but then also like you have the cultural thing where like it's a culture that not only is it like Japanese culture, but it's a fictional Japanese culture that's very stylized, like within Japanese culture.
Right.
That's based on Akuza culture, which is also like a separate culture within so it's just like, it's like a little fucking like Russian nesting doll of like time periods and like cultures and like fucking pop culture niches that like it's so hard to place. But at the same time, like, we're at a point where film was changing drastically. The way you made film was changing drastically. And I couldn't find specifically what camera they used to shoot this movie with. But, like, I feel like it was a very early digital camera, which has not... That image has not aged well, I feel.
Yeah.
On top of that, like, again, you've got mixing of very good practical effects with, like, really awful, low-budget... early 2000s CGI. Now, don't get me wrong, some movies in the early 2000s, the CGI is okay, but again, this is a lower budget movie, and it's really bad in this movie. It's awful. Luckily, that kind of goes to like the silly charm of the movie, but at the same time, it very much cements it in a specific period. And because of that, it makes it very hard, I feel, for new audiences to come into this movie. Like, it's not like looking from a polished movie from the 90s, like The Rock or some shit like that, where you're like, oh yeah, this is clearly a 90s movie,
Scorpion.
but like, it's fun and all that kind of shit. Like, no, like, it's such a weird, like you're saying, it's hard to place, but it's clearly of a period previous, and it's dealing with such hard things like rape and like murder and like the exploitation of the mentally challenged and like all these things that, like, it being so dated is just one step too far. Like, it makes it very hard for a modern audience to engage in the movie, to the point where, like, now there is a HD transfer of the movie that looks pretty good, but most people for the longest time, all they could see is like the trailer from this version of the movie, which is not like it looks very cheap and it looks very dated, and like I understand why people are hesitant to jump into it based on that. So yeah, and also even just like a lot of the sensibilities of the movie are very dated, because again, you have Takashi Miike, who's already an older gentleman, making a movie like at a point where not only cinema is changing, but society is like getting ready for major change over here in America, and like the way we perceive films, and also just like, again, everything's changing at that point.
Yeah.
And this film is like a relic of the end of a period. Like you were saying, this movie very much feels more like late 90s as opposed to early 2000s. So even at the time that like it was finally released and stuff like that, like it felt like it was a relic of an era that had already passed.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my least favorite thing about the movie, because again, like everything that's bad in the movie, I feel comes from that. Like everything that, like, again, like the dub, you know, like it's not a great dub, but at the time it came out, it was actually pretty solid, you know? So it's like, as times change, the period, the time capsule in which this movie was made will only hurt it more and more.
And it's not like they're gonna go back and fucking fix it.
No, they're not gonna fix it, and like it's one of the few things that very rarely do you hear some American being like, we should remake that movie, and then when they do, they're shut down really fucking quick.
I could imagine.
So
Jesus.
so yeah. Anyway, yeah, it's a very dated film, and that definitely hurts like the longevity of it to a certain degree. Right on, guys. So, Ichi the Killer is a fucking ride and a half. It is a lot to deal with. It is a super graphically violent, fucked up, silly ass, funny, whatever the fuck this hybrid thing is. It's Takashi Miike to its core. Would you recommend it?
I don't know. I don't know if I can. It's just a little too much.
Okay.
For, like, normal people.
Oh, I see. Normal people, I see. Okay.
I mean, I recommended Tusk, so like,
Oh,
fuck.
you did.
I
recommended Tusk.
Well, I mean, there's a reason we're watching this after Tusk. This is, in my opinion, one step further than Tusk.
Oh no, yeah, it's 100%
for
worse
sure.
than Tusk. But like the things that make it rough is maybe some of the torture scenes and like
It's kind of rapey.
there's a lot of rapey.
Yeah, there's a
scenes
lot of
in it.
rapey stuff.
But like the other violence is like,
Yeah.
the
Okay.
dub's hilarious. Sure.
I would say that if someone is going to watch it, that they should try to track down the HD version just to see if that helps
Yeah.
any. I've heard that it's really good. I haven't personally seen it except for the trailers. Here's my thing.
strap the fuck up. How
Yeah.
about that?
I definitely recommend this movie, and obviously this isn't a movie you recommend to everyone, but have you ever seen anything like this movie?
Oh no.
No.
And even after me telling you things about this movie, could you imagine what you were about to see?
No.
So based on that grounds alone, first off, I do love this movie. I do. Like, unabashedly, like, flaws and all, I love this movie. It's super fucked up. Like, it's just, there's nothing like it. And for so many movies, like, that is why I cherish them and love them, is because even if you were to try to sit down and replicate this movie, you couldn't fucking do it.
Couldn't do it.
Like,
No.
this movie is what it is, and, like, there's nothing like it. It can't be imitated or replicated, or, like, even if someone was like, I'm gonna make a movie just like that, kind of, you're gonna fail, dude.
Yeah.
Don't fucking do it.
First of all, you got to figure out the cast, and the way like Hollywood is right now, you probably can't get a lot of women to be doing scenes like that.
Yeah,
no.
just don't.
So no,
It's
like,
pretty rough.
Just don't.
yeah. So the movie's super rough. Like, it really is. It's got a lot of extreme things, and to a lot of modern viewers, their sensibilities will not align with this movie.
Yeah.
But if you've liked a lot of the other movies that we've recommended on this channel, like Tusks and From Beyond and Reanimator and stuff like that.
Hey, Reanimator's a good movie.
Yeah, it is
I'd
a good
recommend
movie.
that to
The
anybody.
Reanimator.
So is this one.
Fuck.
So yeah, guys, I highly recommend Ichi the Killer. Just know what the fuck you're getting into and buckle the fuck up, because it is one hell of a ride. Takashi Miike is... You just... Dude, keep doing you. You do like 6 movies a year, and like 2 or 3 of them are kids' movies, and they're just as good as everything else you do. Just like, rock the fuck on, sir. Right on, children of the screen. Thank you for joining us for the penultimate episode of What You Mean You Ain't Seen, Ichi the Killer.
Good night.
Later.
Right on, guys. So again, that means that this is our second to last episode, and our final episode will be Cannibal Holocaust, which we will be doing live, so make sure and check that out. I will have a more specific time and date for you guys coming out in the next week, but if you want to catch up on all the episodes that we have out so far, I will have a link to that playlist in the description below. Once again, children of the screen, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for keeping up with us over the last 49 episodes. We really appreciate it. It means the world to us, and we really hope you catch us on the next live episode where this movie's just gonna fuck their shit up. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be awesome.
I love having my shit fucked up.
Yeah. Thank you guys very much. Hope you all have a good night. Nerd Scum, motherfucking out.